Welcome to the Winners Find a Way show and podcast with your host, Trent M Clark, 3-time World Series coach, CEO of Leadershipity, serial entrepreneur, having started 12 companies, coach to the 1%, and an international speaker. This show is going to be your go-to podcast for facing adversity, being inspired, and overcoming obstacles, all from the best in the world, business, sports, and leadership. Hate the crappy ingredients in many beverages and energy drinks? Rebellious Infusions are the go-to functional beverage. They have 5 or fewer plant-based organic ingredients, no sugar, no calories, loaded with antioxidants to boost your immune system, and L-theanine for brain health. Rebellious Infusions are available at drinkrebellious.com. Rethink your drink. For 10% off of your next purchase, use the code 99999.
Hello and welcome to the Winners Find a Way show. I am your host, Trent Clark, CEO of Leadershipity, CEO of AIM NIL Academy. And most people know me as both public speaker and longtime coach in professional baseball, coaching in 3 World Series. So super excited about you joining us on the Winners Find a Way show today. And I have my good friend, Rob Finklestein. Rob, how are you doing, my man?
You know what? I'm doing great. I'm so jacked about that intro.
yeah. That's why we get the hot take, man. Like, you got to take it. Hot take.
It's great. I mean, between my podcast that I do and the NIL for You podcast that we co-host, I mean, it's exciting, man. I need a sizzle reel.
Yeah, I love that. So, yeah, what most people don't know is that Rob and I actually co-host a secondary podcast to both our main podcasts called NIL for You, which is awesome. And love being on that show with you, man. But, hey, let's have everybody get to know Rob Finklestein today, which is first Steen or Stein?
Stein, you got it. You know, I used to say it's ambidextrous, but Stein.
It's Stein. Yeah, I want to be right, man. Like, I like that. So you're a New Jersey kid, a fighting Delaware Blue Hen, by the way, which is awesome. And now in Florida. So tell everybody where they can find you.
They can find me on alumnidirect.com. They can find me on LinkedIn and Facebook, both personally. Rob Finklestein, find me there. But then you can find us on our Alumni Direct accounts. And then definitely go into our Alumni Direct YouTube channel where they can catch all the great athletes and entrepreneurs, the Alumni Journey podcast, as well as all the podcast networks.
Yeah. So tell me, Rob, did you study alumni management and networking in college, or what was your major, brother?
My major was business marketing, but I've always been I'm a sales guy by trade for many years, and just so passionate about networking, connecting, and helping people. And that's where all that came from.
Yeah, and I love it. So let's get into this a little bit. I mean, Alumni Direct, your operation, tell us a little bit about that business real quick.
Yeah, sure. So what we did is we set out to create a platform where different alumni, whether it be just straight out college alumni, it could be athlete alumni, business alumni association, fraternities, sororities, a place where they know they can go and everybody there is in that affinity group. So unlike some of these other platforms where you kind of have to do some digging to find your fellow alumni, here, everybody's from that same group.
Love it. I mean, it's crazy. Like, if we just talked about college and university students, I mean, how many actual university, and I'm not talking, you can say graduates, whatever you want to tell me. Like, what is the current number in our workforce today that are alumni? Is this like 27 million? Is it 200 million? What's our number just in the U.S. alone? Do you know that number?
Yeah, we're looking at probably upwards of 140 million. And that's from over 4,000 colleges and universities in the U.S. And
wow,
that's a couple years back, so it might be a little bit higher now. And that's just the U.S. It doesn't include Canada or anywhere else in the world as far as alumni go.
Wow. I mean, yeah, when you think about the number, we deal a lot with the athletes, right? And so 570,000 college athletes at any given time at the NCAA, which I think is a ton, by the way, right? Yeah. Then you think the millions and millions enrolled in college. And I went to the University of Toledo. I don't know how that is in comparison to size to Delaware. We were about probably 28, 30,000, I think, when I was there.
A little bit bigger.
That's kicking off, I don't know, like maybe 7,000 graduates a year, and we become alumni immediately. And, one of the first thing I see in LinkedIn, and it's always that constant connection, is, hey, 3 people from your college work there. And I'm always like, wait, whoa. There's a lot of alumni connection that I have no idea about. But if I'm ever in a meeting or I'm speaking somewhere, someone invariably comes up and says, oh, hey, Trent, I went to Toledo too, man. Like, that's awesome. I was there and, whatever year, right? And then we're talking about Rocketville and how it went there. And it's an immediate connector to people.
Oh, absolutely. And, I'm the same way. I mean, I'm down in South Florida now in Boca Raton. And so I'm about 1,200 miles away from the University of Delaware. And when I meet a Delaware alumni, surprisingly, about 2,500 alumni down there alone in South Florida. But it's like, wow, that's cool. And you're right. You just talk about, regardless of what age group you are, there's things that you can find in common. And there's that trust level. It's almost like that person went to the same school. So yeah, they could be a jerk, but your ultimate thing is that you trust them right off the bat. Like, oh my God, we went to the same place, probably grew up in the same area. So that there's that common bond that you have with your fellow alumni.
Yeah, it's a shared experience, right? Because we all go, oh, hey, did you go to the campus bar? What did you think about this place in the rec center? And you immediately have instant, shared experiences. And man, it's refreshing and it's a great conversation piece, of course. And, and I think even advancing past that, because I am such a big sports guy, right? I have spoke for the Notre Dame Alumni Association Chicago, which is hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of members and big group. And that's a very small university, as you know. That's not like a 30,000. That's a 7,500 university people, students at any time. So graduates are very few and far between, which makes it probably even more elite. And then I also am reminded of going into the Ohio State bar in Chicago, where if you want to go see Ohio State games, there's a bar that everyone, they're kind of unofficial. It's not like it's Buckeye Bar, but this is where all the Ohio State alumni go. And there's probably a ton more, if they were connected on Alumni Direct, would be coming down to that bar on Saturdays to watch the ball game.
Oh, absolutely. It's Ohio State is a good one. I mean, they've got probably over 1 million alumni out there. It's huge. But you're right. It's that, you talk about that now. I just got something, a buddy of mine. We've got Delaware's playing Penn State. I'm sure we're going to get killed, but it's on the second weekend of the season. And we're talking about going to a Penn State sports bar with a bunch of Delaware guys and girls to kind of crash the party, so to speak. But yeah, there's that common ground for sure. And then one of the things that you mentioned, like on LinkedIn, where you can go and this person graduated from the school. What we're trying to do is just make it easy. Like, one person put it best to me is, it's almost like you can connect with somebody. It's like handing a business card. Like, hey, Trent, we went to the same school. We connected on LinkedIn, and now it's up to us now to continue that conversation. And a lot of people don't know how to do it. And that's what we're trying to do at Alumni Direct, is to kind of take people under our wings and teach them the right way to network and connect, but make it easy for them, because they know they're going into that college alumni community center or that athlete alumni community center.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one thing to have a listing of a place where all these people are. I think that's gigantic, right? And I know the universities are trying to do it. I know they send out tons. I feel like it's always pay to play from the universities, right? Like, hey, we'd really like you in your varsity tea club or the association. Just send us $49.95 and we can get you listed. I'm like, wait a minute, didn't I already give you enough money? Like, how'd that work, right? So I think there's some really interesting concepts of that. But one thing I'm hearing from you differently is that not only when you're plugged into Alumni Direct do you have the listing, but now there's ongoing education. Jump on the webinar and have a little introduction about how you network and how you might meet people. And ultimately, do you see that as having like college webinar events where people can join in from an individual school or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll give you an example. Like, one of the things that I'm doing right now, we have an athlete community center, and every month I host a virtual event, and just getting together. Right now, my former podcast guests come on on this networking event, and they're able to talk, and they're across all sports, which is cool. So, I mean, you've got, NFL players talking to college wrestlers to swimmers across the thing. So it's bringing them together, and we're committed to doing that within the college communities as well. So as we start building these communities and we see some traction, we'd be more than glad to help facilitate these events. And they can do it themselves too. I mean, they can create on the site, they can create events, whether virtual or live, and share them out with other alumni.
Yeah, I love it. I just think what a power of that network is such a big deal. And it's amazing. And the sea of people that are just tied with affinity to that university. I mean, most people's university is a pretty good experience. We study what we want, that we have passion about. We meet instructors and people that help us along counselors that get us along in our career. So it feels like we meet influential adults that catapult us in our world. And then, of course, our peer-to-peer network is gigantic. We make a lot of friends. Most of it's good. At college, it's usually positive relationships. And I don't want to discount that people have some negative experiences
Sure.
At a university. That does happen, and unfortunately. And I know schools work hard to avoid that. And I was part of that, by the way. I was part of that University of Toledo when we had a major uprising when I was on campus, and it was very tragic. And unfortunately, it was an inside issue that was going on. Maybe a little bit of what I would consider someone mentally unhealthy about their job was really concerned about keeping their job in security on the campus and started creating security issues on the campus and really elevating that to a horrible level, and where people actually died. And fortunately, the university caught it and made it, safe again. But even though that experience happened in a short time while I was at university, I don't look back at that and remember that as the only thing that happened that was negative at the school. I mean, this was 95% positive and 5%, was, hey, tough or things. And even the things that probably were tough at the time and negative, like tough classes. I think back, and when you have perspective 10, 15, 20 years down the road, you're like, wow, I really learned a lot through that experience, and it served me in a lot of ways. And I'm thankful I went through a hard time. That helped me get through the next time it got hard. And also knowing that I could do it, and I could get my degree, and I could overcome a tough professor or whatever the issue was. And so I think there's so many great lessons that the experiences and the experiential share is also a great network piece. When I've had good conversations of talking to people about a tough instructor, it was negative at the time, but now we're sharing it 15 years later going, yeah, we both got through it. Yeah, high five, man. And it's instantly something else to connect on.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, going to different events, going to, whether it's sporting events or, people love talking about the fraternities and the sororities that were in there. And, we're trying to cater to all that as well. Cause I think it's important to have those memories and some of the things you look at, I always talk about, like jobs, for example, is that, when you're at a university, they've got career services and there's only so much they can handle. They can work with the juniors and the seniors and maybe some people out. But a lot of these alumni, once they're out, it's kind of forgotten. And it's not on purpose. It's just they don't have enough people to handle that. And so that's something we're trying to facilitate as well, is to have alumni posting jobs, people that are in a higher position, posting jobs within that alumni community, and then having other alumni that are looking for jobs to tap into it. And I'm not saying you're definitely going to get the job, but I say this all the time. If I'm interviewing 5 people and they all have the same credentials, but one went to University of Delaware, probably going to hire the Delaware person. You probably do the same thing for Toledo. So you have that common affinity relationship.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, and it's funny, having also gone to grad school at Michigan State and now being in Michigan, right? There's some affinity, and I grew up a Michigan fan. So there's a big, this is the war, right? This is like a house divided. If you have like a spouse who went to Michigan and then the other one went to Michigan State, it's like, well, like we don't talk a couple weekends of the year, right? It's like really crazy because it becomes this house divided, right? And it's a lot of fun, but I will tell you exactly that. I mean, listen, there's a lot of shared experience from my Spartan brothers, right, and sisters. So someone starts talking to me about their experience of Spartans and what happened in this area and that, I know it. And someone says, oh, well, yeah, University of Michigan, we had a great program of this. I'm like, I don't know it. I was never on campus at length to know those things. And so it's kind of like, I don't know the conversation. So it does. And just those little things, they do play on our psychology without a doubt. And for someone who is really out there, who's really bolstering their career, I think it's so important to know where these people went to school, what you know about them. And man, that's where Alumni Direct, so powerful. And then knowing that and being able to connect LinkedIn and seeing shared connections, that brings a whole nother level of connecting there too. So what a big deal for people that are continuing to try to move and progress. And if you're in sales, I mean, that's a big deal to know people that are willing, especially in a position to make purchase products and things like that of your category, and knowing where you can find buyers that already have familiarity with you. It's just a huge relationship, booster that you don't need, you already have it intrinsically.
Yeah, that you got that step up. And I always talk about that. I mean, if you trying to sell to an alumni and you just, you build a connecting network, it's all about relationships. And so it's that alumni experience is a foundation for relationships. And so it definitely helps to start doing that, to working with people. And then to your point, like one of the things we talked about is, say, advertising your business in Alumni Direct in your community. And not to say that, alumni are definitely going to buy it, but I think because you're an alumni, they'll at least give it a look. Whereas if it's just any kind of product or service and somebody's trying to sell it, maybe they will, maybe they won't. Or when they do it, it's because somebody recommends it. So here, it might not necessarily be recommended, but the fact that they're alumni, just kind of like, okay, well, that's kind of a recommendation because, again, we've got that common relationship.
Yeah, it makes so much sense that if you're in a B2B position, tap into your network. It's so valued. So let's talk a little bit about pivot to your show, podcast, Athletes to Entrepreneurs. This is a huge event. Why do you think that these athletes tend to run into the entrepreneur community? You've got these alumni, they went to school, they studied something, and they've decided, hey, maybe they go out, do a job for a little while, but ultimately they want to own their own thing. Why do you think athletes are drawn to that? Because, when I first joined the entrepreneur organization, my first year I joined a forum, we had 9 members of our forum and 5 were former college athletes like yourself. I mean, what most people don't know about you is you were a cross-country guy and track guy for the Fighting Blue Hens. Did you guys fight actually on the track, or was that just like you kicked everybody's butt and that was the fight?
Yeah, that was a fight. I mean, it was,
okay.
We kind of left it for the football players, but, we did a little bit of that too.
Yeah, perfect. So what do you think about the athletes to entrepreneurs? Talk to me about why you think they go that way.
Well, I think it's and I talk about it with most people that I interview on the show, and we interview former collegiate professional athletes across all sports. But I think the common theme is that there's an athlete skill set or the athlete DNA, whatever you want to call it. A lot of these, it's the leadership skills. It's the teamwork, it's the preparation, the hard work, the goal setting, everything as an entrepreneur that you really need to do. I mean, there's got to be a fight into you. And, we've talked about it offline. We're both entrepreneurs ourselves, but sometimes it's a struggle. But I think the athletes have that mindset that they can attack it and they can continue to feel the pain, so to speak, but drive through it. And I think that's what makes them special. And, even in talking to some of the people on my podcast, one guy resonates. It wasn't as an entrepreneur, but it was more about business leadership. And he was a guy that, played college football. And when he was done, he kind of went up the corporate ladder, ultimately became a CEO for a couple of different companies. And he just implored athletes like, hey, use that skill set. I mean, everything that you've got, that drive, that perseverance, the strength, determination, use that and build a company.
Yeah, I think I would say, and I agree with you 100%. I would also say that a lot of those skill sets for folks going from alumni who are going into the corporate world, there's so many more skills. First of all, I think most people don't know that the current workforce is about 20% college grads. Last time I checked, that number may be a little different now. But this is not everybody's a college graduate, right? It's a hard deal to go sacrifice, pay the money, go in. But listen, all the things that you learn are massive. It's time management, it's working in groups, it's individual performance, it's individual care, living on my own and navigating that water and living with other people and how to be a roommate. But it's also working in groups and how we combine to create something valuable. And then we focus on something that we really want to get really good at. And professors who have had 30, 40 years of studying this, all experts in their field, all come and give us that expertise over a very intense kind of time period of learning, which also shows that we can go and direct and learn quickly on a job and got learning skills and coachability, which is so big for anyone in the corporate world that they're looking for people to have those skills to say, hey, you're coming to our company. We need to teach you how our products serve and how you can talk very with knowledge about our product. And we need to train you up for 30 days. And you're like, I don't know if I need 30 days. I could probably learn this in a week, but they're used to doing it this way. And so they do that and go, wow, these students that come out of here are really way ahead, and they are a step above on the way to leadership because they're already coming in at level 3, 4 on a corporate structure of leadership because the other folks who started the front line have got to learn that. And it takes a few years, and they already got the chance to do it in another environment, and they'll probably do it in other environments. Walk me through that, about how valuable that's been and what your alumni have said about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the key word there is leadership. You're right. I think it's just that people, you've got that especially, I mean, if you think about people that are captains, I mean, you have different levels, obviously, on each team. But most of these people, especially if you start talking about like, D1 sports and some of the bigger sports, they were probably leaders in their high schools or on their Pee-wee teams or Little League teams or whatever you want to call it. So as they kind of went up the ladder, they kind of did that leadership. And I think people also tend to gravitate to athletes and look up to athletes. So I think, they're watching them on the field, they're envying them. And, whether that's deserved or not, I don't know, because it depends on the person, all that, what they stand for. But I think there's definitely that sense there. And I think that's what companies look at, is they're looking to hire these leaders. And, like you said, I think there's steps above already. I mean, when you go into sales, especially, and a lot of companies like to hire athletes that, for sales positions, because they feel like, maybe a little bit of the gift of gab they've got, they know how to communicate, and again, they're engaging. And then of course, people want to hear their stories. They're good storytellers. So, I mean, I think all that comes into play.
Yeah, I think it's huge. I think that any student who's like found their specialty, athletes are a very frontline specialty, right? And it sticks out, lifted up in the communities often. And at bigger universities, television, there's all sorts of things. But people who lead in labs, people who lead in band, and people who lead in dance and theater and education, there are skill sets there that have created expertise. And, if you want to own that and move to that next level coming out of it, you've been given all the foundation you need at the university level to take that to that next step. And it doesn't really matter the environment. If you're in a nonprofit organization, you're in a school, you're in a factory, you're on a professional team, right? It just doesn't matter what organization you're involved in. Those skill sets transfer very well. The environment changes, but the skills don't. And learning to apply those in a way that fits the organization's needs is critical. But all the foundation for those skills are already laid. And so it's a big deal. And I see a lot of people, and this is another factor of Alumni Direct, I see a lot of people who want to know, hey, what did you study and what were your extracurricular activities? Whether you were doing a full-time athlete thing, or you joined the economic club at university, or, the underwater basket weaving group. I don't know. I don't care what you were passionate about. Like, get it on, because people like that, they went above and beyond the minimum and did more and got involved. And that is huge.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think one other that we didn't I guess, whether you call it skill set or personality trait, whatever it might be, but passion is a big thing. And just, to be able to excel in what you're doing, if you've got that passion for whatever you're doing, like you said, whether it's basket weaving or economics or being a doctor, whatever it might be, if you've got that passion there, which athletes have, that's something that's it's just great.
Yeah. I think one of the things about college and that I learned from university was studying. I mean, I disliked studying as a young man. I had, I think, somewhere between 20 and 30 higher priorities than that, right? Like, that was not my interest. Fortunately for me, it wasn't challenging for me to learn. So I could learn quickly. And skate by with B's and C's for many years, and felt pretty good about myself because I'd always kind of rise and rally to get the grade when I needed it. But man, when I got into university where I really started studying in my area of passion, school became an absolute joy. I mean, learning became an absolute joy. It wasn't like, oh, I've got to go home and study. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't wait. We're going to do cadaver lab tomorrow. This is going to be awesome. Like, there's going to be dead body. Like, we're going to talk all about how the body works. And everyone's like going, oh my gosh, that's super gross. And I'm like going, it's going to be awesome. Right. And so here I am just enthralled in this, and man, the learning, and all of a sudden I'm getting dean's list and president's list. And I'm like, man, I don't even know what this stuff is, but these are nice awards. I didn't know. I'm just loving what I'm doing, and it's coming really easy for that reason. And man, I think that passion just shows out in everything, in your relationships, in your personal relationships, in your parenting, in your teams, in your organizations, even how you manage yourself when you're just in public at the restaurants and things like that. I think it just shows up because you have a new appreciation. And I've always had a great appreciation now as much as I travel, when people have just passion for what they're doing, whether that's serving a cup of coffee, making a souffle, building a skyscraper. I just love it when you see people who do their work and love the way they contribute.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, you hear a lot of people say sometimes, a Walmart greeter, the infectious personality. I mean, we've all gone to different sporting events, and you've got that person that takes you down to your seat, but they're passionate. They just love that sport, and they be there every day, and they do it with a smile. It's great to see.
That's such a good example right there. I remember there was a man I knew back in Cleveland. And Cleveland, when I was with the Indians, was the heyday, right? The place was sold out for like 3 years. In fact, would sell out in like 9 days. And so there was a man who I knew who owned a local business, and he was on a list to get a better seat. He wanted to move a little further in behind home plate. And he already had good seats. Like, they were pretty good. And when the opportunity came, he was like, oh, I can't leave Teresa. Teresa was his night after night at Jacobs Field. She was his greeter. And Teresa, hey, how you doing, Mr. Stanley? How you doing? And walk him down and like, how's your wife? And they built a relationship, right? And he was like, I could go get the other seats, but, can Teresa come and greet me over in section, 242, and they're like, no, like she's, 248, and he's like, yeah, I'm not leaving. I love Teresa, right? And so here's the impact of relationship for people and what they want from, because it's not just, hey, I want to come see the ball game. I'm coming for the experience. And Teresa and I share that together, and it's awesome.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's it. Kind of, when you talk about that, kind of remind me of the movie Fever Pitch. Where like where they had the seats, the season tickets were just, they were there all the time, the same people. And it was that whole group of people. But I think they might have an usher there too. They just knew them by name and treated them right.
Yeah, and that's such a Boston thing, right? Because that's a really unique park, and what an environment. And it's funny because the reality is there's a strong bond and relationship, and they really show that. They do such a good job in that movie of showing it. And then, these people likely have no idea what they do individually outside that Fenway Park, right? Like, they have, like, I don't know where you live, what your business is, what job you do, nothing, but they have this thing in common. And you can see the relationship. They're talking to each other, first name basis. They've been there forever. And, and I think that's really neat too, when you develop that kind of relationship and it's part of your inner circle where, hey, wow, like Rob hasn't been here for 3 games. Is everything okay with Rob? Like, they are aware that and care about each other. And so, I think those are really bonds and relationships that are built, and they're often built by something like that college experience. So power of Alumni Direct, I think, is just, it's just a great one. Super excited about what you're doing there. And, for everybody out there, get on board. Like, what are you doing? What are you waiting for? Let's go. So
absolutely
got to do that. Like, let's go. So let's pivot a little bit. Now, you're a New Jersey kid, time in Delaware through college. So now at the age of 25, you spend this all the time in the Northeast. And now it's Florida. Like, you decide, hey, I'm going to be a Boca Raton guy, right? And like, what gauges that decision? What are you thinking? Like, hey, this is a good idea. I mean, besides the snow.
You know what? Honestly, that was the number one seller at first, was just the weather. That's kind of what got us down there. And it's interesting because everybody talks about, oh, Florida's so hot. It's so hot. Yeah. And it is, but everything's so well air conditioning. And, come like October, November, it's just, it's unbelievable. And growing up as a kid, my grandparents lived down there. So I'd go down to Florida a lot of times in the wintertime, obviously. So, that would make an impact. But it's a great life. And it's funny, too, because most people think of Florida like, oh, it's all old people. But it's not. I mean, there's a lot of young people and people moving down there. And it's great when you could do stuff all year round. I've had the flip side. And, you grew up, you said, in Michigan and all that. So you've got the weather. And my daughter's in Chicago. So I've endured some of the, short periods of time, but like the Chicago winters, it's rough. And it just makes me appreciate Florida that much more, especially when you're close to the beach. Go to the beach every weekend and just kind of walk and people watch, and just enjoy yourself, relax.
Yeah, that is really cool. I mean, there's a reason why people do this life, right? I mean, if the Midwest, we're infamous for it, where we go to Florida as soon as we can in the winter, and then of course come back to the cabins and the lakefronts and all the things for the summer. And it's a high quality life of health and wellness. And whether that's 6 and 6 or 9 and 3 or whatever you're spending, man, it's just really good. And feeling, you got to feel for your Florida group this year. I mean, they've taken a couple real hits on the weather. I mean, these hurricanes are just keep coming through, and it's a natural part of Florida. It's not uncommon. This is not like, oh my gosh, it's climate change. There's hurricanes now. There's always been hurricanes. Like really, there's a university called the Hurricanes for a reason, and they were named that a very long time ago because this has always been in a hurricane path, right? So, but that doesn't make it any less, tough for people that do have to endure and get through that. So definitely feeling for the people of Florida when those things happen. And so shout out and prayers out to them when all these things, I know they're still rebuilding Naples, and, another hit goes through there in that area, fortunately going a little north of Tampa, Fort Lauderdale, or Tampa, Fort Myers. But, that area got hit pretty good the first time too. So, twice in a year just gets rough.
Yeah, no, our thoughts go out to them. And, we've lived there. We've been there for a couple of hurricanes, and it's a scary thing. And the only, I guess, the positive is not positive, but the fact that you do get advance warning. I mean, I've had the fun of being in Chicago this summer and getting those tornado warnings at the last minute. Like, okay, what do we do here? I don't want to go Dorothy in Kansas here.
Yeah. Yeah, that warning's about 8 minutes, and we just, not long ago, we just had one, streak through Michigan, and I was actually in Dallas at the time with 109 degrees. So, I was like going, oh my gosh, I'm so thrilled to be out of Michigan in the warm weather of Dallas going, oh my gosh, I actually felt my skin was melting from my face. And I was like, wow, this is what heat really feels like. And meanwhile, unbeknownst to me, thinking like, hey, it's hot up there too, this tornado runs through the northern Grand Rapids and then really runs right down 96, which really creates a lot of havoc because pretty rural, but a major highway between Detroit and Grand Rapids, Lansing, all three big cities are connected to that. And going through 4 days after the event, man, I mean, I went through an area that looked like, Godzilla went through. Like it was like all the trees were halved and they're all like folded over like a toothpick, down, and the branches, and they'd fallen on the highway and closed the highway. And it was just, this streak of a few miles where, I mean, how long do trees take to grow? And these are big trees in Michigan. This isn't like these little bushes on the side of the road. These are massive trees. So, it changes the landscape of things for years and years to come. And we were just discussing that one of the golf courses was really hit bad locally, and it's changed the dynamics of the course, right? Like, these trees that used to be an issue are no longer in play because they're gone. Yeah. And it's bizarre. I mean, I don't know. I don't think they're going to make it a links course, but it's significant. And so it's when we deal through these things, it's a lot, but hearts out to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's finish with this, Rob. I mean, a lot of people are challenged today, and a lot of it's around work, and they're not in environments they want to be in. They're not contributing to organizations they believe in. They're struggling. They may be out of work. The Winners Find a Way show is typically bent on the fact that winners, when shown data that they are losing, find a way to win. Great quote from the 4 Disciplines of Execution. So you've seen some friends out there. I mean, we've talked about a few friends that are hurting and things are tough, and people are going through these, tragic events like these horrific hurricanes and Hawaii event, the fire. And what would you tell somebody today that's out there that's, hey, got to take themselves up and get back going and find a way?
I think the biggest thing is to keep your chin up and just try to be as positive as you can. I mean, we all go through negative stretches, and I think we just have to forge through it and just know. And I think doing things that you want to do and that you're passionate about. We talked about passion before. I think a lot of times people get in ruts. They might be in a certain position, and don't be afraid to challenge yourself and to find potential other opportunities, whether it be just in other businesses, whether it be entrepreneurship, but find things out there that make you happy. Because, I mean, we're here and you want to enjoy every day. And I think all of us have gone through where, I wish I was somewhere else. Well, this is take that opportunity to really look around you and look at the big picture and find what you're most passionate about, what you want to do.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And I want to make a very distinct difference of what Rob just said. Something that you're passionate about and makes you happy isn't necessarily easy. And that's okay. Like, I love entrepreneurship. You and I were talking about offline. It's not always easy. There are struggles in that, but I really wouldn't want the struggles somewhere else. I like the struggles here. I like the struggles as a professional coach. I liked trying to get challenging organizations to be moving in the right direction and play for championships. And that's what we did. And, creating that opportunity was diligent work. And I know everyone looks on the outside and goes, oh man, that must be a great job. And I'm like, when you go to work 162 days out of 6 months, and you get 1 day off a month, you really better love what you're doing, right? And people don't, you get an off season. Yeah. You know what? Teachers do too, right? And they get every weekend off. And it's a hard grind and you have to love it. And listen, I'm not a woe is me guy. Like, don't feel sorry for me because I had to work in pro ball, but there are going to be times I didn't love it. And I knew I wasn't getting sympathy from everybody else, but I can tell you that anything you do in a job, in an organization, there are things you're not going to like about it.
Sure.
I think the other thing that you really touched on was getting back up. And, when you get back up, we're also typically looking for immediate networks that may help. Our network of people that can help us get back on our feet. And, we talk about how important the 5 closest people are in our network, but I think the alumni is overlooked when people are challenged and in trouble. Like, where can I go to get some help? I was trained in this place. And I think there's a lot of people that maybe are in a better situation in the moment that are probably more willing to come alongside fellow alum and help them. And I think if they didn't reach out to that network, it's probably an error. And, I've been there before, Rob, and that wasn't something I thought about first. And looking back on that, I thought, why didn't I make that call?
Yeah, it's interesting. One of my most recent podcasts, a person was talking about that, just saying, I really wish I would have tapped in when I was in college. They're athlete, they play college athletics, and they might have been professional. I'm not sure the person, but they talked about that exact thing. Is just that people are willing to help, and you need to reach out to them. I mean, there's you have your different phases of alumni. You're first coming out, you're looking for a job. Then people are established, they got their families, and then you get people as they get older, like you and I, they want to get into that whole mentorship role too, and helping people. But I think don't be afraid. I encourage it when you're in school, and then when you get out of school, and just all the way through it, because you never know. It doesn't have to be for a job. It doesn't have to be for business. You never know where somebody wants to help you, or you want to help them. I guess the one lesson I always say with networking too is be willing to give to others and have that helping spirit. Like, don't look at every opportunity as what's in it for you, but like, how do you help others? And I think if you have that kind of a little bit of that servant mentality, that goes a long way with a lot of people.
I'll add to that too, in the fact that if I was asking for help, even though I may be asking for a hand in something, I would also likely ask, hey, how can I help you? And I may not be in a situation to help anybody monetarily or emotionally today, but I have a specialty from this university. I graduated some information, and I don't know how many mentors I've had that I've asked that question, and for their time and effort, I've written up fitness programs for them, help them with their diets, help them get back on a winning schedule that can help their health and their mental state better. I mean, we do that all over the world for people. So if I can give that because I have that knowledge, hey, I really can't give you money, but I can give you my time and some effort and help you get better too. And this might serve you through diabetes or something like that. And it's a great exchange of knowledge that we can always use. And that's provided by that university, by our university experience. So why wouldn't we lean into it when we're with our alumni?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I definitely do it. People are willing to help.
I love it. All right, for everybody, thank you so much for joining us on the Winners Find a Way show. Rob Finklestein for joining us. You can also always check us out on NIL for You, our podcast. Rob plays host on our NIL for You podcast. I am a co-host color guy only, and so I always get excited about, chatting up all the stuff NIL and what's going on with the college athletes and all the world. It's a bunch of fun. So join us over there for our AIM and for Leadershipity and for the Winners Find a Way show. Thank you for joining us. We are always on Fridays, 12:30 p.m. Eastern, 9:30 a.m. Pacific. come and join us then. Until next time, winners find a way.
Rebellious infusions are organic flavored water enhancers. Rebellious provides clean, focused energy in liquid packets. Just tear the corner of the packet and pour 16 ounces of water. Rebellious infusions have no sugar, no calories, and up to 300 milligrams of antioxidants and loads of L-theanine for brain health. Rethink your drink at drinkrebellious.com. For 10% off of your next purchase, use the code 99999. Do you want to be our next guest? Or do you have inspiring stories to share? Or do you love to inspire, support, and empower thought leaders? Feel free to send Trent a direct message on Instagram or Facebook at Leadershipity.